seeing Sentai. I'm Mars Girl. We're right at the tail end of Battle Fever J, looking at just the final 3 episodes, episodes 50 through 52. You could have just about skipped last week's 7 episodes or so. Really, they just kind of did the same thing over and over again. But these last 3 episodes is where you get some overarching stuff that really starts to wrap up the end of the series. So I'm really glad that we're talking about just these last 3 episodes without being weighed down by a whole bunch of other episodes in the way. Really, it all comes down to this incredible fight between the Battle Fever General and Commander Header. Like, they're really where it's at. It meets its peak performance between these two dudes. And that happens in episode 50. Now, there is another monster of that episode called Ogre Beard Monster. But really, you can kind of ignore the fact that that monster exists kind of at all, because the entire point is for Commander Header to kind of be a jerk and go around killing dudes who are really good and masterful at their different swordsmanships, but Commander Header's form of martial arts is basically an idea that is do anything to win. So he ends up really cruelly killing all of these different masters of their craft, either in their sleep, but really not in their sleep. He does attack one in the middle of the night. He wakes up, but then he gets a claw in his neck, you know. So a couple of these dudes die, and the general is like, this is unforgivable. And Battle Fever's like, yeah, but you can't go out there because you're the brains of our operation. And so he stays back a little bit, and then as people start getting kidnapped, he's like, forget this, and he goes off, and it's a battle between him and Header, and it was like, you remember perhaps at the beginning of this series where I was saying, man, Header sure doesn't do much, but once they started making Header fight, then suddenly he was awesome, and now you're putting Header against the Battle Fever General. That's friggin' amazing. It's awesome. And so they do have this really interesting and entertaining sword fight, and in the end, the General beats Commander Header. He kills him. He's dead. Like, let's make no mistake about that. He is dead. But you know, since Egos, specifically Salome of Egos, was able to pick his body up and take it back to headquarters, you know that that's not the end of him, unfortunately. So then comes episode 51, where Satan Egos is like, alright, we're gonna resurrect Header, and we're gonna make a monster out of him, and he's just Header Monster, and he's really just a much uglier version of the original Commander Header. But he is still quite the adversary. In fact, he's probably the toughest adversary that Battle Fever has ever had. So it turns out he's much more resilient, practically immortal. Just about immortal. So he summons actually 3 giant monsters, 3 old robots, all at the same time. And so Battle Fever has to get into their own Battle Fever Robo, and they start trying to fight these other 3 robots, but they can't do it. They throw their Cross Fever attack at them, doesn't do anything. They do their Electric Sword attack, doesn't do anything, and they're like, well, what the heck, man? And their robots running out of juice, and then they realize, the monster on the ground, it's Commander Header Monster. And so they throw a Pentaforce at him, and he explodes, but he's not actually dead. What's left is one little eyeball, and the eyeball attaches itself to one of the dude's feet, and he walks all the way back to base. So now Commander Header is inside the base and is prepared to kill the General, although the General gets the drop on him again because the General's friggin' awesome. And then Header is like, but I'm also a suicide bomber. But within the last 10 seconds, it turns out that little robot bird that they've had just sitting there, kind of doing nothing the whole time, he can shoot freezing, I guess? It's kind of weird. So they manage to freeze Header Monster, take him outside. Header Monster becomes huge. They kill him with the giant robot. So finally, Commander Header is like dead. And this is episode 51. So now, Satan Egos is pretty freaking pissed, right? And who wouldn't be? Like, you've been defeated 51 times. So now you figure, it's the final episode, right? Episode 52, Satan Egos is going to do something really freaking awesome! Not really. Like, he starts by making this earthquake machine thing out of the same big bulbous womb that birthed all these previous monsters and stuff. So the idea is to shake the hell out of the grand Tokyo area, metropolitan area. And there's like 150 to 200 earthquakes in like this really small, stupid span of time. And it turns out that Battle Fever is trying to figure out, what's causing the earthquakes. Then there's some mysterious woman who shows up and hands Battle Fever, Battle Japan, a bunch of photos like, hey, this is Egos headquarters. I can give you information on how to get down there and all the blueprints and everything you need to know just to give me, like, all this extra cash. And actually, you look at her, they should be suspicious of her right off the bat, because this is the same actress who was the Umbrella Monster from episode 1. Not to mention, she was Agent 007 from back during Go Ranger. But either way, from that first episode appearance, I'm assuming that they thought that maybe the audience wouldn't remember her because over 50 episodes had passed by that point. Now, granted, they are suspicious of her, but they're like, she sure does look familiar, and they put her photo on top of a photo of Salome, and they're like, it's exactly the same! No, it isn't. But okay, you're early 1980, January 1980 tokusatsu, so, like, I guess I have to just use my imagination sometimes. Sure, Battle Fever, she's Salome. And she is, so when they eventually go to her, and they rescue her from a whole bunch of Egos grunts, the cut men that they've been calling them occasionally from time to time. You might be wondering, oh no, why is Salome getting attacked by the cut men? And she's in the hospital and she's like, I tried to give you all this information because I don't want to die, because Satan Egos is planning to destroy the entire region with earthquakes. Here, have this microfilm from the inside of my mouth. And so they read this microfilm, and they're like, ha, now we know exactly how to get down there. And they get down there, and Satan Egos is like, you fools! Salome was still working for me the entire time. It was a trap, and now I'm gonna turn you guys into my monsters, and I'll have the strongest, bestest monsters ever's. And Battle Fever's all like, screw you, and so then they try and defeat the big old monster womb thing that's also causing earthquakes, but they suck at it, and then they get sucked into it. And they're all trying to figure out how to get out. They can't do it. Then they're like, that's the weak spot. Pentaforce. Boom. And they get out. Now, Satan Egos is pissed. And he blasts off from that spot that he's been sitting for the last 50 some odd episodes. Really kind of ridiculous. And this whole time he's just been a statue, right? Just sitting there kind of cross-legged is what he kind of has this appearance of. So I'm like, alright, he's gonna turn into his final true form now, right? What's it gonna be? And it's him just really, really big. And it was kind of lame. And he causes some explosions. And he causes some wind. And that's about it, really. And, like, Pentaforce doesn't work on him, and it's like, no duh, he's enormous, you gotta get the robot. So they bring out Battle Fever Robo, they try to use Cross Fever on him, it doesn't work, and it's like, no duh, it's not your final finisher, so they bring out the Electric Sword, only instead of taking a slash at him like they've done every single other time they brought out the Electric Sword, they just throw the sword into his chest, and it impales into his chest, and he's bleeding all this green blood. And then he explodes and he dies. And much like all these previous other Sentai series that we've now watched together, it just kind of ends. That's pretty much it. They're standing there, staring into the beautiful sunset, which is probably really bad for their eyesight. They're smiling, and then they ride off on horseback, and we don't see them again, and yay, the series is over! Now, it was a fun ride. It was absolutely a fun ride for 52 episodes, and now we're finally at, like, the length of episodes that you're pretty much going to see from this point forward throughout the rest of Sentai history. This is approximately how long these series are going to last. What's interesting is that you're going to go on to see the actor for Battle Kenya go on to be Denji Blue in the very, very next Sentai series in Denji Man. So I'm looking forward to seeing him again here when I start watching here in just a little bit. Otherwise, there's still a whole bunch of, like, loose ends and stuff. Like, what did Agos really want in the end? Like, that was never even addressed to begin with. Like, were they just douchebags for the sake of being douchebags? Because that's kind of what it seems like, and Battle Fever just existed to, like, be the last line of defense against douchebaggery in the general Tokyo metropolitan area? Because, I mean, I assume that that's why the Battle Fever organization exists to begin with, because they existed before the threat of Agos existed. Really, the whole coexistence thing never makes sense. It's just a story of good versus evil for the sake of good versus evil. And I guess for a children's show, I mean, how bad is that, really? To kind of round things out, these are not my favorite suits. The face masks, as I said I think in the first vlog of this series, have always kind of freaked me out. Battle Japan probably looks the best, but all their face masks kind of freak me out. And their stunt choreography is okay, but as I understand, and as I have seen in more recent Sentai, it just continues to get better from there. And I'm really glad that I was able to watch through this series because we got to see Super Sentai's very first giant robot, as once again made popular by Toei's Japanese Spider-Man series that came out just the year before Battle Fever J came out. And then this next season we're going to see the first transforming robot. So excited! So really, I think I'm gonna just kind of shut up now and get on moving to the next Super Sentai series, really. So I hope you'll continue to watch right along with me. As usual, if you're looking for these series, a lot of these earlier Sentai series, you might not be able to find them in English. At least, all I can tell you is that I have not successfully found them in English. I do speak some Japanese. I did take the Japanese language proficiency test at the bottom level, so I can get by, but I must tell you guys, I am not 100% fluent, so I'm gonna make mistakes. Now I'm gonna keep writing these blog entries from day to day, talking about Denjimon and doing episode synopses and stuff like that. I'm gonna be able to give you at least the very basic gist of what's been going on in these episodes, but otherwise don't rely on me as like a professional translator or anything like that. Figure out some way to get somebody to get these into English for you so that you can enjoy them just as much as a native speaker would be able to enjoy them. That's my best recommendation. The series does exist out there. I'm not going to tell you where to find it, but again, it's not going to be in English. So looking forward to seeing you guys in the next vlog, and once again, this has been another episode of Seeing Sentai. I'll be seeing you guys next time.